All right, so here we are with my recording arts professor. Please introduce yourself and explain a little bit about what mixing engineers and mastering engineers do.
Okay, my name is Stephen Roessner. I'm a professor at the University of Rochester in the Audio and Music Engineering Department. I'm also a Grammy Award winning engineer, and I mix and master and record. I've been doing it for probably too long. But I enjoy it. I love it. Mixing and mastering in particular, so we've already recorded the band, so that's recording is done. So mixing and mastering is kind of like I've got this whole board of individual tracks that I need to mix together. One of my favorite ways to explain it that I do in class is akin to baking. Okay, so recording is going out to the store and you buy a whole bunch of ingredients. You buy the flour, the sugar, and all that kind of stuff. Eggs, milk, whatever you need. You're going to bake a cake. And so mixing, you got all those ingredients in your kitchen and you literally put them in a mixing bowl. So you have all these instruments that you've recorded. So now we're going to put them in a mix, and what comes out is the batter, the stereo track, or the 5.1 mix or 7.1 mix. So we need to make sure that all the proportions are right. If there's too much sugar, the cake is going to be too sweet. If there's too much flour, it's going to be too dry and sit like a rock in your stomach when you eat it. So you have to balance everything and make sure it's right. Mastering on the end, after you bake the cake and you have that, mastering is the icing on the cake. It's making sure it's even on the top, and it's making sure that all the songs and each slice is going to have the same amount of flavor and all that kind of stuff.
Great, so I made sure to pick 4 bands with very different sounds, so hopefully you'll have plenty to comment on the differing drum kit sounds and guitar sounds and such. So first up is FTIsland. They are also known as Five Treasure Island. It's a 5-member Korean rock band formed by FNC Entertainment in 2007. This band is considered to be South Korea's first instrumental idol band ever. The band had also won various prestigious awards such as Golden Disc Awards and Seoul Music Awards, and they've held more than 10 different tours since debut. Okay, so you'll be listening to their 2015 song called Pray, which tiptoes between metal and the emo world, but the main vocalist's dulcet vocals and belts evoke a mellower feel, keeping this in a general rock-pop category, even if it's a screamo shriek away from falling into a heavier genre. This whole album was produced by Hong Tower, which is one of the main vocalists' company, and this is the first song and album since their debut that this band was able to fully self-compose.
Just as a note, I probably won't be commenting much on the musicality of the bands, more the engineering, the mixing, production methods that interest me more. I may say something about the music, but in general, I'm just taking the music as it is.
You are good to go. Just press the space bar loudly.
All right. Yeah, it's pretty modern production, kind of what we hear in America. It started to become a trend around after 2000, between 2000 and 2010, in the screamo, emo genre that popped up around them. Very tight drums. These sound to me like it's a live performance, but then re-triggered drums, because they're all very similar. It's well balanced. The vocals are quite forward, but that's pretty standard for pop production in general and radio hits. It's very top heavy. By that I mean there's a lot of high frequency content, both guitars, vocals, the kick drum even is very clicky. There's not a lot of like bottom end to the mix. Like it's there, it's present, but to me it's just, this sounds like after 5-6 songs my ears are going to be fatigued because they're being assaulted with high frequency content all the time. But then again, that's a trait of this particular type of music. So the production's very solid, really good sounds. I like the creativity and the reverbs and things like that come in on the snare drum. It's a very wide mix, so that my stereo stage is very broad and nice left, right. Everything has its place. It's very well done. It's a great mix. That was a good bridge, musically and production-wise. They kind of calmed down a minute. You could hear that they had the production in mind of what was going to happen there almost. Yeah, overall, good song. I like the production. I don't know if I can say anything more about it.
All right, so moving on to the second band. It should pop up and then you can pause it. Or we can.
Ads.
So Hyukoh is an indie band signed to d.ear, AMC, and HaSuel in May 2014 with 4 members. You'll be listening to Hyukoh's Tomboy. It was composed by the band's main vocalist and was mixed by Norman Niche. Do you know him?
No.
Okay. Apparently they had a lot of arguments with him. They originally flew Norman out to Korea to work with him, but in the end, they had to delay the album and fly out to Berlin to redo the entire mix because they weren't happy with it.
Oh, interesting.
Does that happen often?
I mean, engineers fly, yeah, to work with different bands. That's pretty normal. If they flew him to Korea to work with him, you think that they would kind of work it out there. But maybe the engineer wasn't familiar with the studio, didn't have the tools that he wanted, and all his normal stuff was in Berlin. And in reality, I could see the engineer being frustrated with not having the tools, if that's what happened. But it might have been other problems. Who knows? I'm not familiar with the story. So.
Right. Well, go ahead.
Okay.
난 엄마가 늘 베푼 사랑이 어색해.
I immediately like the space I'm being enveloped in. It's very subtle, but nice reverbs, and they've set a nice sound stage and nice room for me to listen in. This is a very wide mix, almost to the point where I feel like there might be some stuff that's a little out of phase, but it's not necessarily bad. It just seems like I have sounds that are outside the boundaries of the speakers in my stereo mix. It's very dense. There's a lot going on musically. The overall production, all the source sounds sound really good. I really love the vocal sound. I think it's very intimate, but yet there's this spaciousness to it. It's very nice. The drums sound good. It's very kind of almost 70s production drums. I find it interesting, just as an engineering perspective, most everything's, when it's like a solo instrument besides the vocals, is in the right speaker. So like the guitar in the beginning was over here, now the piano's over here. And it's just kind of interesting that that's the choice, like very right-leaning on the solo parts. During the chorus it's very full, so that, there's a lot of doubling and there's a really interesting sound here. I mean, it sounds like a slide guitar, but it's affected in a way where it doesn't sound like a slide guitar, really. Some nice purposeful distortion on the snare drum. It works well with the song. Okay. Next song.
Okay, so Day6 is a 5-member band formed under JYP Entertainment in 2015. A fun fact about the group is that they had a project in 2017 where they released 2 songs every single month on the 6th day. You'll be reacting to their March comeback where they actually struggled with creating this track. This song is called How Can I Say, and it was written, finalized, and approved only a little over a week before the official release. I did some research, and in the past, some of the band members said that they've had problems with their mixing, like the guitar sounds weren't as clear, and their mixing could overall be better. I'm not sure who the mixer is, but maybe the mixer was rushed.
It's a hectic time schedule, I think. But it depends on whether they recorded a bunch and then they just kind of released over time, or if they were recording something new every month. That's a rush schedule.
Right. How long does it usually take for you to mix something, or does it depend?
It depends. Generally, if I'm given tracks that are already recorded, or I've recorded them previously and I'm just mixing, and it's one song, it's usually about anywhere from 2 to 4 hours to do a song. But if it's like a full album, it's usually like that first hour and a half to 2 hours is getting like the sounds that I generally want for the whole album, and then from then on I can kind of tweak each song, which is like another 1.5 to 2 hours per song.
Okay, so maybe not too much of a time crunch for them.
No, not too much. It shouldn't be too much of a time crunch, but you know, that's just me working alone. Because then, all right, so I get the first mixes, and then you bring the band in, and then the band is like, well, we want to do this, we want to do this, and then that takes a lot more time. So I don't know this situation, but we'll listen. It's interesting. It's a real mix of electronic and rock. I'm not in love with the guitars either. I might agree with the band on that one. They're there, but they're not. This should be exciting. Again, very top heavy. The vocals are really piercing me at like 2 to 3 kilohertz, just like almost too much. The drums are definitely samples. It might be a live performance, but they're re-triggered. The snare, the giveaway usually is the kick and snare literally sound the same every hit. There's no inflection, there's no musicality to it. Vocals are just too loud, I think. It's a combination of the EQ. They're so forward that the rest of the band is kind of like set back in the mix. I like the song, I like the production, the arrangement's really cool, the way it goes from like really loud in the chorus and then this electronic kind of verses. I just think mixing could be a little more balanced. That was pretty cool. That was a cool production trick right there. The delay and the kind of panning, that was neat. Again, like the first band we listened to, it's very top heavy. There's all the low end is still clicky and very tight, but there's like no like oomph to it. Again, we're not listening with subwoofers, so maybe there's something I'm missing in that mix. So.
Interesting.
Now this song, sorry.
Would you say like, so the very top heavy music, that's just the style, or it could also be an icky mixing?
I mean, it is the style. If you go and listen to the emo bands of the mid-2000s, you know, that's the style, and it's very loud and aggressive, and wants you to get up out of your seat and like, you know, really rock out. But the problem with that is after a couple songs you get tired. There is such a thing as ear fatigue, and you actually do feel physically tired when you're constantly assaulted with very loud frequencies for a long amount of time. Yeah, I mean, if you had a kick drum, so I keep saying the kick drum is not like boomy and big and thick, it's very clicky, and that stems back to early metal music, 80s, 90s, where they used triggers on the drums as opposed to a microphone because they were doing a lot of double bass, you know. It's Morse code. Right. Kind of stuff, and to get that attack you need to use triggers. Microphones will be too boomy, they won't react quick enough, they're sluggish. So that's the sound that they're going for, and if there is too much boom, then it becomes like this horrible kind of junky bass tone, and so I understand why they don't do that. But those two songs that I commented on, the kick drum really wasn't doing that. It was a very just kind of, occasionally there was like a double kick thing in there, but not often enough where you couldn't put some low end back in to really kind of give it a bottom. And even the bass guitar seems to be very almost in the mid-rangey, almost sitting with the guitars in both of those mixes. So, but that's a preference that I hear, and I understand that that's what they're going for, but that's a style thing.
All right, CNBlue, final K band of the day.
Okay.
So this is a 4-member rock band formed in 2009 under FNC Entertainment, so the same entertainment as FTIsland.
Okay.
Or FTIsland. CN is an initialism for code name, while Blue is a backronym for burning, lovely, untouchable, and emotional, which represents the personalities of the band members, supposedly. This is a band that tries to change their style every single time they release a new song, and in 2016, they had to come back with this song, You're So Fine, which is a catchy, upbeat, kind of poppy song that was written and composed by the band's leader, Jaehyun. And yeah.
Okay. Great. I want more out of the bass here again. I want this to really make me dance. Right now it seems very high mids. Overall, it's like each individual instrument is so compressed that nothing is making me want to dance. It's a dance song, and like there's a good beat, there's a good rhythm, but the mix isn't making me want to get up out of my seat. I can hear everything clearly. Vocals sound great. I like the horn arrangements and their placement. I can hear the guitar. In the intro, the bass guitar doing the slap, there's particular notes in that part where I'd be like, I don't know if I really like that, because they pop out and they almost interfere with the vocals. It's a neat, interesting part, an interesting sound, but it might be just a little too much. Some of the nuances in the guitars, I can hear them, but they're getting lost. There's some really pretty harmony parts going on in the instrumentals, but it's so dominated by everything, like all the vocals and everything, that I'm missing it. It's just not clear enough. Alright. No part really kind of had dynamic content to it. In this, it was just kind of like flat, and the only control was done by the mixing. You didn't have the musical nuances of like loud soft. It was kind of like, ooh, loud soft on the fader, not loud soft musically. And that's usually what happens if you use too much compression on an individual instrument. So you have like this kick drum that's 4 on the floor and going, but it's not providing any kind of like weight or heft because it's just like, you know, it's too even. Again, that's the style of this. But in all honesty, like if I put this up against a Bruno Mars mix, I'm probably going to go with the Bruno Mars mix, because the engineers that worked on that understand the complexity of dynamics and the fact that if you choke off every instrument with compression, then it's not going to be a dynamic mix.
These 4 K bands, of course, they don't like represent all the K bands out there. But how does the mixing that you see so far compare to the American bands mixing, the usual styles?
And their styles are very, very similar. It's very close, especially on the screamo type stuff. It was just like, okay, I've heard, like, if you put that on the radio, I'd be like, it's some screamo band from Long Island. You know, that's kind of what I would have said, except, you know, they're singing Korean. It'd be hard to discern just sound alone. That last one, I'd probably say, I'd probably be like, okay, well, this is a good tune, but it's not catching my ear. The songwriting's good, but mix-wise, I'd probably be like, you know, they could have done a lot more.
Yeah, did you have a favorite mixer or the songs mixing out of those 4?
Out of those 4, probably the second one, the indie band. Aside from the fact that one, I think, had some phasing issues. It just seemed like the audio was wider than the speakers, which is a common problem with phasing. There was something about that mix that felt a little uneven and uneasy, so I'm not sure why. But in general, the sounds I generally liked. I also did enjoy the third song. The guitars in that one, I think, need to be louder. It needed to be more exciting. I enjoyed alright, we're a rock band, but we're also doing some electronic kind of stuff. I always enjoy that kind of stuff, because it's like, how do we blend these two and make them sound good? Right,
which is interesting because I saw them live recently,
really?
And I enjoyed their music so much more. You could hear the actual instruments
the nuances
versus the poppy mixing.
Yeah.
So it was a great experience.
Yeah. I'm curious, like, I don't know these engineers, I don't know these bands, like, this is the first time I've listened to it. And if any of you are out there watching and wondering how can you get better at what you do if you're an engineer, the number one thing I'd say is go see the band that you're working with live. Go to their rehearsals. Go to a bar or to a club to hear them. If you don't ever expose yourself to what they sound like as a band, you'll never mix for them well, because you're going to try to pinhole them and put them in a shoebox of, like, they should sound like this, which might work, but it also is it's not bringing out the nuances of the band that makes them special.